Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dharma Helper and this is DH Reviews. This is my Season 1, Episode 5 review of Constantine. If you missed any of my previous Constantine reviews, there will be a link in the description of this video, as well as an annotation behind me on the screen. You can go ahead and click either of those, as always, and they will take you right to the Constantine playlist. Also, if you guys are interested in my thoughts on other series, I will link in the description of this video my Gotham playlist, my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. playlist, and my Scorpion playlist for you guys to check that out if you're interested in my thoughts on those series. That being said, Season 1, Episode 5 of Constantine was called something wholly unpronounceable that I'm not even going to try to attempt to pronounce, just because I feel like I would butcher it and I don't want to put you guys through that. So instead, I'm going to put the title of the episode on the screen, and you can figure it out for yourselves. With that being said, what the episode was about was these vengeful spirits killing people, and we learned that this is a result of Papa Midnight trying to contact these people in a sort of seance type scenario where he would be paid, and then he would allow relatives or friends or family or whatever the case may be to contact these loved ones and to ask for closure and stuff like that. And instead of contacting them in a seance type scenario, what he was doing was accidentally bringing them back from the dead, and this was a result of the rising darkness corrupting his magic. And so Papa Midnight and Constantine team up in this episode, and they try to figure out a way to bring this rising darkness under control and to stop this resurrection from happening. And we also learn a little bit more about Zed's past through a character named Jim Corrigan, who has some interesting things about him. And we see a little bit more from Chaz in this episode, and some interesting things about Chaz in this episode. And so that's kind of the story of the episode, is trying to stop these resurrections and stop these vengeful spirits and bring Papa Midnight's magic back under control. And so that's the story of the episode. Let's talk about the characters, and let's begin with Constantine. And Constantine in this episode, as I said, he teams up with Papa Midnight, and so that was very cool to see that on screen, that rivalry between the two of them and their different approaches to magic. And on the one hand, you have Papa Midnight, who's very spiritual, and he voodoo and all this stuff, and very respectful and very mindful of the Loa and the voodoo spirits and so on. And then you have Constantine, who is very nonchalant and very arrogant and pompous and above all that stuff. And Constantine is very certain of himself and certain of his magical abilities. And we see that in this episode, because his solution to this whole thing about the resurrections and stuff is to create a spell wherein he and Papa Midnight will bless these corpses of the resurrected people and hopefully bring them back and stop the resurrection. So his solution is basically to fight magic with magic, and that does not work. The first time they try that spell, it doesn't work. So that's something that I wanted to point out to you guys and to talk about in the review, is that I enjoyed seeing Constantine, who carries himself so arrogantly and who carries himself so matter-of-factly, being wrong. And that there's something satisfying about those types of characters who are genius or savants or masters or whatever the case may be, being wrong, because they're right most of the time. 99% of the time these guys are right. You know what I mean? And so to see that 1% of the time creep up every now and again is satisfying for us as viewers, and I'm sure it's satisfying for characters like Papa Midnight and Zed to see that. And to see that for all his bluster and bravado, Constantine is just some guy dabbling in magic. And so that was something that I wanted to point out in terms of Constantine and his character in this episode. And the last thing that I want to talk about in terms of Constantine is the prophecy that Papa Midnight lays out at the end of the episode, where he says the rising darkness is being heralded by someone very close to Constantine and someone who is going to betray Constantine. And there are a couple of things I want to talk about in regards to that, and a couple of ways I can see that going. Prophecies and stuff like that are intentionally vague, right? So you can't take that for face value and say that the obvious answer here is Zed is heralding this darkness and is going to betray Constantine. That's one possibility, but it's too obvious, and I don't think the show would go with that. What I'm interested in seeing is maybe Manny, who is being very close to Constantine and working closely with Constantine, might be the one heralding this darkness and trying to change the rules of magic. Or maybe Jim Corrigan, who is now closer and closer to the team, maybe he is heralding this darkness unwillingly or unwittingly, and he will end up at one point betraying the team. Or Chaz will betray Constantine in some way. Or maybe they'll throw us a huge curveball and we'll have Astrid, who is, from what I understand of the show so far, who was very close to Constantine and very important to Constantine. Maybe she is heralding this darkness. Maybe she is the one who will betray Constantine. I don't know. And the reaction from Constantine, not only about this prophecy, but when the prophecy comes to a head, that is going to be interesting to watch, because there are not many people that get close to Constantine, not many people that he lets close. And now the idea that someone is going to betray him is probably going to eat at him and probably going to influence a lot of his decisions moving forward in the series. And so that's Constantine this episode, pretty much. I really liked his character in this episode and the idea, again, of him being wrong. And mostly just that back and forth with him and Papa Midnight was very cool to watch. So speaking of that, let's talk about Papa Midnight. And continuing the idea of that rivalry, let's again talk about Papa Midnight's approach to magic. And he's very, like I said, respectful of the spirits. And he's very mindful that he is just a vessel for these spirits. And he's very humble in a contrast to Constantine. Papa Midnight strikes me as a humble guy. And he understands that there are spirits and powers and beings moving and making moves that he's not going to understand, or that he is too mortal to recognize. And that was cool to watch and cool to understand that idea of he understands that he's dabbling in things that he doesn't fully grasp. And the contrast there with Constantine was really cool to see. As I said, the main story here is that Papa Midnight's magic is being corrupted. And the idea of him starting these seances and giving these people peace and all this stuff, and this being an accidental thing, I think that speaks to him not necessarily being a bad guy. He wanted to fix it, and he wanted to make it right, and he wanted to stop these spirits from attacking people. So, from what we've seen from Papa Midnight so far, I don't think he is a villain in the conventional sense, and that is something that I 100% can get behind in terms of the series, and I think that's really brilliant, is bringing us this guy who is obviously in direct opposition of Constantine, but who is not a villain necessarily. And I think that is what we're going to see moving forward about Papa Midnight, is that for all of his talk and all of his confrontations with Constantine, he is not a bad guy 100% of the way. I think his main problem with Constantine is what we saw in this episode, is again going back to their differences in the way that they approach magic. He sees Constantine as a magpie of magic, as he says, a jackass of all trades and a master of none, and he sees that disrespect that Constantine has for things like the Loa and for the spirits and all this stuff, and he is offended by that. he sees Constantine as a walking offense to something very sacred and something very dear to his heart. And that's his problem with Constantine. Not so much good versus evil, because Papa Midnight's not 100% evil, and Constantine is not 100% good. So I like that we saw that idea being explored in this episode. And something I wanted to talk about in terms of Papa Midnight is his sister, who we saw in this episode is a skull that he communicates with and gets information from the underworld, and ultimately he gets that prophecy. So I like that we saw that he has a softer side, and again, he's not 100% bad, and I want to see more of that from Papa Midnight, more history behind why he makes the decisions that he makes and what happened to his sister and stuff. I think that would be cool to explore, and a nice thing for the series to take a look at. And wrapping up my thoughts on Papa Midnight, the idea that the rising darkness can corrupt people's magic, I want to see that have an impact on Papa Midnight and what he does moving forward. He seemed to me, like I said, to be a cautious, careful, humble sort of guy who does these sort of magical voodoo stuff, very mindful of the things that he's getting involved in. And the caution, I want to see more caution on his end, maybe, I think, in terms of a reluctance to get too deep into the magical aspect of things now that the rising darkness has shown that it can corrupt his magic. I want to see how careful he is not to disrupt the rising darkness any further, and the lengths at which he will go and the methods he will use to combat this darkness. So those are my thoughts on Papa Midnight. Let's transition into talking about Zed. Zed in this episode takes a very different approach to Papa Midnight and Constantine in terms of fighting these spirits. And an approach that I agree with, actually, an approach that I probably would have done had I been in that situation. Excuse me. She sees these restless spirits, these vengeful spirits, and says what I would have said, and does what I would have done in terms of trying to find peace for these spirits. In particular, the hitchhiking guy, I believe the hitchhiker's name was Zach. And she tries to figure out, okay, why did Zach leave his home? Why was Zach hitchhiking the night he was killed? And what can we do in terms of bringing peace to that spirit? And she talks to Zach, and she tries to understand him rather than fighting him like Constantine and Papa Midnight did. And I liked that. And we learned a little bit more about Zed through that. You know, she's a runner herself. She's running from stuff. She has a past. And she talks to Zach about that. And she talks to Jim Corrigan about that. And I want to see more from her in terms of that. And I think we will, now that Jim Corrigan is in the picture. She touches Jim Corrigan and sees that flashing green stuff. So we're seeing more of her powers develop. And again, I think that's going to play a huge part in things. And in terms of the prophecy, I don't see Zed as the betrayer, as the heralder of this darkness. I see her more as maybe a misunderstood sort of character, or the red herring character. I don't think she's going to betray Constantine quite yet. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't. I think it's too obvious of a choice, like I said, in terms of what the show has shown us so far. I think it's too obvious of a choice that it might be Zed, and so I don't think that's going to be the case. We did see, again, more of her powers develop and more of her past develop. And like I want to see with Papa Midnight, I want to see that again with Zed. And I want to see maybe a flashback or some things come to light with Zed, and why she's keeping these secrets and how long she can keep these secrets. And in regards to that, let's talk about Jim Corrigan, who is a cop and who's very skeptical about all this stuff over the course of the episode. And he and Zed work together to kind of bring peace to the hitchhiker. And so he and Zed have a conversation about Zed's past, because he recognizes her face as on a missing persons report, because he used to work missing persons. And so to me, he's going to be our window into Zed's past. He's going to pressure her into telling the truth to Constantine, or something along the lines where he's going to say to Constantine the truth about Zed. He's going to be the window into Zed's past, I think. And we saw at the end of the episode, he and Zed had that interaction, like I said, where Zed saw like this green aura and this skeletal aura around him. So I'm interested to see what exactly is going on there. For somebody who's so skeptical about magic and who's so in the dark about magic, is that a magical aura that he has, or is that some kind of power that's dormant in him? Or is that maybe a glimpse into his future, like a brutal type death that he's going to have? Because he was bleeding, and it was really cool to look at. So what's going on with that? That's something I want to look at in terms of Jim. And again, what role he'll play in Zed's coming out to Constantine. What role his skepticism will play in his future interactions with the team. That's all sort of stuff that I think they're setting up, and I think that we'll see moving forward. And wrapping up my thoughts on characters, let's talk about Chaz, who I had said in my other review I wanted to see more of, and we did see more of in this episode. And I really enjoyed seeing Chaz in this episode. He's very selfless in the way that he throws himself in front of the danger. And he's fighting this, I think it was a model or something, who had her face cut up. And so she'd been stabbing people with scissors. And so he fights her and dies. And then comes back and fights her again and has a conversation with her. So I like that we got a little bit more characterization out of Chaz, in that he's a selfless kind of guy. He's very smart, very calculating, very funny in the way that he handled that ghost the second time. He asked her all these questions, and he very nonchalantly has that conversation with the ghost. So that kind of rubs off on him, that sort of Constantine's sort of nonchalant bluster and bravado maybe rubbed off on him, and that's why they get along so well. And the thing that I wanted to talk about Chaz was his ability that we've seen now twice. He dies and comes back. Obviously, he's in a lot of pain when this happens. He was in pain when he got shocked in the pilot, and he was in pain when he was stabbed by this ghost. So my theory about Chaz's ability is that it is not so much a power as it is a punishment. He was tricked or doomed or punished by a spirit or a demon, maybe, so that he will die consistently and feel all these pains and not be given the release that comes after that. Or maybe he sold his soul at some point, and so he can't die. Or something's going on in terms of that regard. But I'm interested to see what's behind that. And again, is it more punishment or power and ability? And I think we'll see more of that as the series goes on. And what his role will be when the Herald presents himself or herself and betrays Constantine. What will Chaz's reaction to that be? Like I said, he and Constantine are very close, and I think he is the big brother to Constantine and very protective of Constantine for whatever reason. And so I think he'll be very combative against whoever it is that tries to betray Constantine. That'll wrap up my thoughts on characters. So my thoughts overall on the episode: solid episode. I very much enjoyed the rivalry between Constantine and Papa Midnight, and the characterization of Papa Midnight as not necessarily this bad guy. And the idea that he and Constantine just don't like each other very much, and that's probably why they don't get along. And more information about the rising darkness and this herald. I liked at which that's being revealed, and I like the idea and the pace at which Zed's story is being revealed. And I want to see more from Jim Corrigan, and I want to see more from Manny and what role he'll play here moving forward. So, solid episode. If you guys enjoy the episode, leave a thumbs up, leave a like. If you enjoyed the review, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and you'll see more reviews like this as they come out. Again, Mondays are Constantine, Tuesdays are Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Tuesdays are Gotham, Wednesdays are Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Thursdays are Scorpion. If you want to see more reviews, again, subscribe to the channel, and you'll see those reviews as they come out. Comment down below about your thoughts on this episode and your thoughts on my review, anything I might have said or might have missed that you want to talk about. Let's talk about it in the comments or on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter at the DH Reviews. Follow me on Twitter. I talk about the episodes and my thoughts and so on. And I give updates about the channel and about the videos and stuff like that when I can. So share this video and get this video out there on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, wherever you have to get this video out there to share it and grow the channel. With that being said, some very basic things that I want to cover. Tonight, Monday, is the mid-season finale of Gotham, which kind of snuck up on me, so unfortunately there will not be a live stream review of that, but maybe when it comes back there will be a live stream review. The live stream review of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. mid-season finale will be the week of December 9th, so look out for that. Again, probably that Saturday, 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so look out for that. And then, obviously, the premiere of Agent Carter is the next live stream the week of January 6th. And that'll probably be that Saturday again at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's kind of stuff you can look forward to moving forward on the channel. With that being said, I've been Dharma Helper. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, again, make sure to leave a like. That helps me out a lot. I want to thank you guys for your support over this last week. We are almost at 30 subscribers. We crossed 1,000 views. That kind of stuff is really motivating me to move forward here. So thanks again for the support, and I will see you guys in the next video.